G'day everyone, I'm the Red Scar, this is Red Scar Gaming. Today I'll be doing a summary of how my Is It Clues deck went for my second draft for Murders of Karlov Manor. I ultimately won 2 games, lost 3, so it didn't do terribly well. But yeah, I'll talk you through it and how I think I went. Yeah, card by card. First card here is Knife. I did get actually a bit more use out of it than I was expecting. It certainly didn't win me any games by itself, but it did help being on the aggressive. When I was on the aggressive, I can see why people would say otherwise though, because equip 2 for something that is only good on the attack. I mean, if for whatever reason you're on the defensive, it's just not going to go well. It has its uses for the sacrifice at draw a card bit, but I didn't get to use it in this particular case. I might not draft it next time, but it'll sort of depend a little bit. Shock, I don't think I used at all. I did have the opportunity to a few times, it just wasn't effective in that particular case. Though, yeah, Shock's always a useful, if not game-winning card, so I'll definitely go with it again at some stage. Barbal Smuggler, I drew that fairly often. Having 3 copies of it, that's to be expected. It's still one of the better cards that I'd like to draw in a blue draft. I didn't get to undisguise it as often as I'd probably wanted to in this particular draft. Though it's got the slight advantage of paying 3 mana for it and still just chump blocking with it is not the worst thing you could do, because you still have the option of, if it's not used as a chump blocker for whatever reason, and you have the 6 mana spare, may as well turn it into a big creature, which I know there's a few if, buts and maybes there, but I'm still happy with it. Maybe I should have gone 2 instead of 3, maybe, but yeah, look, there's a lot to think about there. Reasonable Doubt, I did get to use that actually more than I was expecting to. I don't think there was any particular time that I used the suspect up to 1 target creature effectively, but in was it game 2? I used it particularly well, I think. That my opponent was a little bit behind me, and I countered sort of the one spell that they would have accelerated with. So I would say, without assuming too much, I would say that basically won me the game in that particular sense. It wasn't the next turn, it wasn't turn after, but yeah, it still really gave me the advantage in that particular case. So yeah, I'm pretty happy with how that went. Demand Answers, I only got to play once, though it was pretty good in that particular circumstance. If I remember correctly, I was on the back foot a bit anyway, and I sacrificed an artifact, drew 2 cards, which, I mean, certainly didn't win me the game. I lost the game anyway, but at least I was able to draw 2 cards and help myself out a bit. Galvanize is, yeah, look, just essentially destroy target creature. I did get to use it pretty well. I did get to deal 5 damage, I think twice actually, which for 2 mana is pretty well spent. So I'll go with that again in a similar circumstance. I think I actually had the opportunity to have 2 Galvanize in this deck, and maybe hindsight I probably should have, but I would only say that if I hadn't used Shock, sorry, I would say I would keep another Galvanize in if I didn't get the Shock in. And in hindsight, maybe I should have had another Galvanize instead of Shock. But look, that's a lot of ifs in that sentence. Red Herring, I know a lot of people have been very happy with its performance, though in this particular draft, I didn't seem to use it as effectively as I wanted to. I think it was game 5 that I really just needed a chump blocker, and Red Herring was not it because it had to attack. I did get to sacrifice it in that game to draw a card because, hey, let's face it, it was going to just die in combat anyway. So it has its moments, but in that particular circumstance, I did need that extra 2 mana ultimately. So it certainly wasn't the card I wanted to play in that particular circumstance, maybe I shouldn't have drafted it, but yeah, it's hindsight. That's what it does. Gleaming Gear Drake was pretty actually effective in this particular draft. While I didn't get it to a huge number, I think the best I got it was 4-4 actually, which is certainly not terrible. But my opponent basically did a lot of destroy target Gear Drake, which, I mean, if they hadn't, I certainly would have done a lot more damage with it. So I suppose in that sense, it's a 2-mana cost creature that gets rid of one of your opponent's removal spells. So it makes the game go for a little bit longer to my advantage in this sense. I'd definitely go with it again in a similar circumstance. It would be really good if I had 2 of them in the deck, but yeah, just didn't get the second one. That's all right. Forensic Gadgeteer. As I said when I drafted it, it's going to be really good, but I'd have to build the deck a bit more around it. If, say, I'd got it pack 1, I probably would have been able to do that more effectively, but assuming I'm remembering this correctly, I got it pack 2, and I hadn't quite got as much of the cards that I probably wanted in for it. I did get to play it game 2 and 4, if I'm remembering correctly, and the little bit of use I did get out of the things cost 1 less bit was very effective. But yeah, had I got it, the first pack, I would have been able to build more effectively around it, I think. I'd definitely draft it again for a similar deck, but probably not in, say, pack 3, just because you'd have to build a bit more around it. Projector Inspector, I've seen it being used more effectively than I did in this particular case, but I'm still happy with how it went, though, at least in my circumstances, I probably wish it was a 2-3 rather than a 3-2. But look, I'm certainly not complaining, but yeah, with the cards that I had, I probably needed it more on the defensive for my sake. But yeah, I'll definitely draft it again at some stage. Crime Novelist, I think I said from the start that I got to be careful drafting that one, because when it works, it works. When it doesn't, it doesn't. And in this particular draft, it probably didn't do as effectively as it could have. I think I only got to actually sacrifice an artifact with it out once, which in that particular case really helped, but it certainly wasn't used as effectively as I'd hoped. So I probably shouldn't have drafted it, but yeah, once again, hindsight is the deciding factor here. Gearbane Orangutan. I stand by drafting that was probably a good idea. I didn't get much of an opportunity to use it though. In fact, I think I drew it, was it once or twice maybe, and my opponents just didn't have an artifact out. In this particular draft, the sacrifice and artifact side to it, ability of it, is still good in this deck, and the fact that it has reach certainly would have helped had I played it. But yeah, in this particular draft, I didn't get much of a chance to use it. And that's not me being unhappy. I just didn't get much of a chance to use it. The Chase is On certainly helped in was it game 3? I think it was that I might have been 2 actually, but anyway, one of my games I used it very effectively. Attacked with with all of my creatures. One of them was not great, so my opponent blocked it. Thought they'd get away with it. I just played that on it and took my opponent's creature out plus the Investigate. For 3 mana, you got to be a little bit careful doing sort of any combat trick, especially seeing that you get your 3 mana for +3 and first strike, but it's another 2 to investigate, to get the sacrifice the clue. I mean, so you got to be a little bit careful doing that. I think in that case I did it effectively, but yeah, I do have to be careful doing that. Cold Case Cracker, probably in hindsight I should have dropped one of them, because I didn't get to play as many as I'd probably hoped for. there was it was game 3 or 4, that I think it was particularly good actually, despite being essentially a chump blocker. It has flying and a death trigger, so it's not bad as a chump blocker. And if you can take something out as well as doing the whole blocking bit, it's pretty damn good. So I sort of wish on that grounds it was, say, a 2/2 flying for 3 mana, but yeah, look, that's me nitpicking there. And I probably should have drafted 2 instead of 3, but yeah, that's hurry up and wait. Harry Dronesmith. When I had that and Gleaming Gear Drake out, it worked very well. Thank you very much. I'd basically, without thinking too much about it, I'd probably like to go 4 Gleaming Gear Drake and 4 Harry Dronesmith in standard. But yeah, look, I'm sure someone will correct me there. But it certainly has its moments and puts me in the aggressive side of it, which, yeah, I know 1/1 Thopter isn't going to take away the game every time, but it certainly helped, and I'll go with that again in a similar circumstance. Gadget Technician, I actually just didn't draw, so I can't really speak terribly intelligently about it. In this case, I would really like to turn it face up, because I was sort of hoping for the whether the chump blockers or the flying, the aggressive side of it, or use it for a chump blocker. But yeah, I just didn't draw it, so I can't speak too intelligently about it. The Rubble Belt Braggart, I'm still happy with how I drafted those. I said at the time that I felt I just needed a big dumb creature at least one end of the spectrum. So I did use him pretty effectively. I think it was game 2 actually that I basically used him probably at his best. The making him suspected, I'll note that you do have to be a bit careful with, because you sort of have to make sure. I would at least generally say that you should only do it, make him suspected, I mean, on the turn that you're going to win, because if your opponent changes the circumstance and you have to block with him, then you're going to end up losing. But look, I know there's a lot of ifs in that sentence too, but I was pretty happy with how he went. Island Mountain, actually I seem to have drawn a lot more Island than Mountain in this particular case, but anyway. Escape Tunnel, still happy with that one, and the Evolving Wilds and the similar cards like that. I'll gladly draft that one again. Maybe it's just bad luck, but Public Thoroughfare I actually drew or had to play at bad times. Maybe it's just a bit of bad luck in that particular sense, but also maybe I shouldn't have drafted it. Though, yeah, I'm just thinking about it basically. Behind the Mask is a card that I was thinking about for a while. Maybe in hindsight I should have had that instead of Knife, because it is basically either make one of your small creatures big, or one of your opponent's big creatures small. Just thinking, is there anything springs to mind that I could have used that very effectively on? I think it was game 3 that my opponent basically just had some big creatures. In fact, game 6. Yeah, game 6 was my opponent had a lot of big creatures, so Behind the Mask would have worked particularly effectively there. So yeah, maybe Behind the Mask instead of Knife, with all that in mind. Candlestick, excuse me. Candlestick in a similar sense to Knife. When it works, but when it doesn't, it doesn't. So I'm glad I didn't put that in. And I don't think in this case I would have used Surveil 2 very well. Unauthorized Exit, I probably would have used on the defensive actually. As in save my own creature from dying, is probably how I would have used it in hindsight, because there was a few times that my opponent did something to the effect of actually mainly destroy Gleaming Gear Drake, which I could have casted on that to save him. But yeah, the Surveil one wouldn't have been as useful to me as I probably wanted, or would have otherwise wanted. But it's still not bad. Excuse me, just take a sip of water because my throat's sore for some reason. Blame the humidity. Surveillance monitor. I questioned him a bit when I drafted him anyway, because there wasn't actually all that many triggers of collect evidence that I would have got a Thopter out of anyway. So probably in this case, I'm glad that I didn't draft him, though maybe take out one of the cold case crackers to put him in, because even if you just ETBs, ETBs do the evidence collect thing and get the Thopter. It's 4 mana for a 3/3 and a 1/1. It's not terrible. Can be used more effectively. Maybe I should have put it in, but yeah, clutching at straws there. Hotshot Investigators has its moments, but for 6 mana, I just don't think it's effective. So I don't think I'm at all sad about that one. Macabre Reconstruction has its moments, but yeah, I certainly wouldn't have gone black just to put that in. Whoop, I'll go back one. Goblin Mask Maker. Whenever he attacks face down, the spells he casts this turn cost 1 less to cast. I'm sure there would have been 1 or 2 situations where I would have used that effectively, but yeah, I certainly wouldn't have relied on him too much. Maybe, and I'm very clutching at straws here, maybe one of them instead of Gearbane Orangutan, but I mean, I'm still very happy with Orangutan anyway. Orange Utan, as my father used to say. But yeah, I'm pretty happy with how it went. If I was going a bit more disguise, then yeah, I can see why you'd play him. But yeah, I'm glad I didn't in this time. Rubble Belt Braggart. As I said when I was drafting him, I don't want to rely too heavily on him because I've got a lot of sort of 3, 4, 5 mana cost stuff anyway. Maybe I should have gone him instead of the Technician. But once again, I suppose I wouldn't have, if I didn't draw the Technician, I wouldn't have drawn the third Braggart. So yeah, I suppose I'm happy with just the 2 instead of 3. Picky Poison is one of the few cards that I would have splashed green for, because it can be very effective. It sometimes isn't though. So yeah, but it is probably the one card that I would have splashed green for. Yeah, though, just one card. And Slime Against Humanity, I would absolutely love to go to build a deck that is, just off the top of my head, say 20 land, 40 Slime Against Humanity, because you can have as many as you want. I would love to do that, but I don't think it would be effective, but God, it would be fun. Thinking Cap, I did think about it because I actually had a fair few detectives, though, and yeah, all of my detectives, without spending too much time looking at them all, they were all a bit on the small side anyway. So yeah, maybe I could have had that, but yeah, it's a whole basically 2 mana to give one creature a bit more chance of survival. And I suppose I didn't have a huge number of detectives. So yeah, I'm glad in Power of Hindsight, I'm glad I didn't draft that, or keep that rather. Case of the Shattered Pact, yeah, as I said at the time when I drafted it, it's like, yeah, look, I didn't have much else to choose from, so I may as well go with that one, and yeah, very glad I didn't play that at all. In my first draft with my Abzan stuff, whenever that was, forgive me for forgetting my details, but yeah, I did versus an opponent who had played that turn 2 actually, and yeah, he did lose the game. I still don't think you should draft that at all, but yeah, look, you have as much fun as you want. Yeah, so I'm pretty happy with pretty happy with how that went. I would have loved to have won 3 games, but that's alright. Yeah, anyway, hope you can learn from what I drafted, and I hope I learned from what I drafted too. And I'll see you next time.